Dear participants to Change Now, welcome to this Art for Change program. Thank you very much for joining live or later from all around the world. We're so happy we have gathered this morning, today, in this second day of Change Now, a dozen of professionals from the art world and from all around the art spectrum to talk about the power of art and cultural institutions and artists to raise questions, to build imaginaries, and to shift behaviors. So stay tuned, because later today at 6 p.m. We will have a special guest, Camille de Foresta from Christie's, and we will visit a virtual exhibition and start the fundraising program for our artistic, non-profit Change Now communities. But first, let's hear of some of the most influential and innovative people working in the art sector, starting with Bruno David, president of the French Museum of Natural History in Paris, the Muséum d'Histoire Naturelle à Paris. Mr. David, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I am here.
Very nice to meet you. So the museum is home to one of the oldest and most prestigious and comprehensive collections of natural collections in the world that spans from the whole history of living beings, but also the extincted species in the world. So you recently published a series of manifests taking a stand to change our relationship to the environment, the latest being on the limits. So we could not have dreamt of a better person than yourself to welcome the whole of this session and to inaugurate it. So now the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes. We're listening to you, Mr. David.
Thank you. It's really an honor for French National Natural History Museum to play a part in this wonderful exchange about the role of cultural institutions in raising awareness about environmental issues. I would like to start by telling you that natural history is definitely part of culture. Even if in France this is far to be evident. We are in a country where it is criminal to make a confusion between Molière and Victor Hugo, while it is much more common in North America, UK, and Australia to consider natural sciences as part of a culture. The role of a museum as a public institution is to share this knowledge of the natural world, including the pressures due to human activities. In doing so, the museum contributes to shed light on very complex questions. In doing so, the museum must also help the society to think itself and to go ahead with a kind of ethic for the planet. Indeed, today we are facing an environmental challenge. The rupture is absolutely major and is marked by the decline of species, the depletion of soil and marine resources, the fragmentation of territories. This question is now central, and it meets social issues concerning health, food, or the preservation of life, as well as the survival of cultural diversity. This challenge is undoubtedly the greatest because it affects the future of our planet and therefore our own future. But it must take into account the social context that is crucial to make it possible or not. To be effective, we have to talk to all kinds of public. This is the point where the museum must be effective. The museum must merge excellence in design and exhibition content for an audience that is supposed to be educated with the need to capture the attention of a larger public, not so accustomed to science. How to explain the complexity of the real world to all kinds of public. The current world no longer makes possible to tell scientific knowledge as an observation without running the risk of seeing it challenged by opinions or beliefs put on the same level as scientific facts. The appropriate approach to raising awareness of the relevance of science is twofold. On one hand, we have to rely on real objects that require an observation capacity. And observation implies a respect of the factual reality. It's very important. With observation, we have no alternative facts. On the other hand, explain the intellectual progression that has been followed through history to reach the knowledge of today and the rules of rigor that scientists are respecting. This is the path. Now I will said something about the importance of objects themselves. It always remains a wonder, a fascination for the tangible reality, made directly accessible without the help of virtual devices. This emotion causes attention and becomes fixative of memory. And my motto for the museum is enlighten to instruct, because I am absolutely convinced that we have to enlighten our visitors and our public. But let me take an example outside the scope of natural sciences. Why should we go to the Orangerie to see the Nymphaea of Monet? I can get a much better picture with many details on the screen of my laptop, because the real object is related to emotion. And when I am facing the real painting of Monet, I am full of emotion. In addition, one learns, and above all, one returns better from that has elicited a genuine emotion. An image on the screen will not lead to the same memorization as a real object in the Orangerie or in the Grand Gallery of Evolution here at the museum. The educational role of museums in transmitting knowledge through wonderment remains thus essential. We have also to face a cultural challenge. As I told in my introduction, it's due to the fact that in France, at least, science is not part of the eligible of culture. We cannot make a confusion between Molière and Victor Hugo, but we can easily consider that oysters are arthropods or crustaceans, which is the same kind of error. This observation is not new, the cultural challenge, but the circulation of information on the web by all and towards all did not favor the dissemination of a common base of knowledge, precisely because information and knowledge are too often confused. Some of our fellow citizens, relying on a legitimate equality in rights, claim an equivalence of skills that doesn't need to be. This is partly the origin of the rejection of scientific knowledge and the tension around fundamentalism and conspiracy. The museum must be vigilant and inflexible on this point, because scientific knowledge is too often questioned, advocating a respect for opinions, whereas it does not belong to the same register. Part of the current generation of teenagers and young adults learn most of its knowledge from YouTube and Wikipedia. While books or objects could provide a base for structure and even critical knowledge, the web generates islands of representation of the world. And those islands are reinforced by feeling to belong to a community where everyone prefers to believe that claims its network neighbor rather than considering the knowledge conveyed by a recognized authority. With this type of drift, no limit exists, and the risk of obscurantism becomes real. This is okay for science, this is also for culture. For a large part of our future fellow citizens, nature comes out of a concrete world. How can the museum help to change this trend? This is what I called a committed and responsible museum. And this leads me to the point that the role of a museum is to carry the science voice in public debates and to pass on knowledge to the citizens. The environmental and social situation justifies that the museum can consider itself as a committed and responsible actor. To do this, the museum promotes a variety of actions that consist in carrying out what natural history can say on questions of science-society interface, where sometimes it will seem unexpected, where sometimes the museum should have spoken before and not did it or was not heard. Since 2017, the museum published manifestos that shed light of natural history and science on important social issues. How they are done, those manifestos? I gather a group of about 12 people, 12 scientists from different origins, philosophers, economists, demographers, sociologues, natural history sciences, and so on, all from the museum, all from outside the museum. I asked them to work together during about 2 months and to write a text, a short text that could be read in about 20 minutes, half an hour. The text is published both in French and English in the same booklet, and we publish this booklet. The first one was devoted to a role and the need for natural history in contemporary societies. It was entitled, "What Future Without Nature?" The second one was about migration, very hot political topic. But we started by showing that migration is a natural phenomenon that concerns almost all species. The third one was about humans and other animals, and I insist about the other. The last one was entitled Facing Our Limits, and has the questions on how to live on this earth with some limits. And the next one, which is currently in preparation, will deal with the natural history of violence. We also organize tribunes. Those tribunes correspond to original experiences between ordinary citizens and researchers. 2 times a year, we tackle a topic such as the risk, nature in the city, or plastic, in very interactive and ludic way. For example, for the risk, we distributed to the people, I will take one, this kind of small box with some nice little candies inside. I cannot show you because otherwise okay, it works. Small little candies inside, and one of these candy has a very bad taste. So are you taking the risk of eating one or not? It depends how you feel that you are. Are you attracted by sugar or not? And so on. So we try to have this kind of experience with the public. We also develop podcasts, sometimes in partnership with great media, and those podcasts are very popular. The public targets are very diverse, from young children to adults. The last one is called Bestial, kind of small animals in English, and it was loaded close to 600,000 times in 1 month. So it's already a great success. And finally, I will tell you that the museum is deeply involved in citizen science and contribution of the public for scientific ventures. A good example is about the birds. We are following the birds population from many years now, and we are able to tell you how fast is the migration of birds toward the north due to climate change. And this is with the help of many citizens. But we are also developing programs close to human sciences. The last one is called Lost Objects Recovered Nature. And it is about the memory in families of the environmental change. In the families, we have postcards, we have pictures, we have just letters, we have various objects that record some aspect of climate change, of environmental change in general. And we are doing that together in France and Germany. And we are doing that in close collaboration with our friends from the Berlin Museum, the Naturkunde Museum in Berlin. Now I suspect it's time to conclude. Yes. And today we have to keep in mind an important legacy of the French Revolution. I mean universalism. Universalism is the principle that grounds the vision of the world. Indeed, the planet, in all the diversity of its resources, its biosphere, or its human culture, is a common good of humanity. And this is not contradictory with the acknowledgement of diversity and differences. We are a single human species. This is universalism, but with many differences among individuals, societies, population, and so on. And this is not an oxymoron. We can have both. And I will tell you just that universalism is also the methodological foundation of any scientific process that grounds our message toward the public. This principle, which carries an invitation to cross point of view, is at the heart of museums' activities and its raison d'être, to finish by a French word. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno David. I noted enlightened to instruct, the commitment and the responsibility of your institution, the importance of reality. And also I will now not make the mistake between an oyster and an arthropod. Thank you so much for those words that set a beautiful horizon for this morning, and I will sure it will inspire millions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, on to our next guests from three prestigious European institutions. They prove that institutions are not necessarily conventional, and that's to say the least. So I hope everyone online will get out of this session with new ideas from those three heads of institutions and with the urge of going back to the museum. I will start with presenting you, Francesca. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, behind your mask. Thank you very much for joining, Francesca. You are the fourth generation of Thyssen-Bornemisza collectionneurs and sponsors of the arts, operating in Vienna, Madrid, Venice, and many other places. You founded TBA 21 nearly 20 years ago. It's soon your anniversary. And you are among the first supporters of Thomas Saraceno and his Aerocen project. You've been always involved in sustainable art, as we say. And in 2011, you created the TBA-W1 Academy, a truly ambitious art and science program that focuses on the ocean and now sits in Venice. And we'll be hearing about this later. Emma Lavigne, thank you very much for joining. So you've been heading the Palais de Tokyo in Paris for almost 2 years, and your legacy is already enormous. And so your voice also is important in the art world. In a recent tribune to reopen museums, you talked about a direct link between going to the museum and the art and the well-being of people and society. Well, maybe we'll talk about this later. And finally, Arturo Galansino, you operated a tremendous shift at the head of Palazzo Strozzi in Florence that you turned into one of the most influential places and hotspots for contemporary art in Italy. You invited politically engaged artists like Ai Weiwei, Thomas Saraceno, recently JR, who dug a sort of scar in your facade to sort of expel the memory of confinement. Before digging into our conversation, I would like you to take a bit of hindsight and look back at the past year and sort of gauge what you learned, what was good and what was bad, what you came out from those crises. The crisis, of course, a health crisis, but also a cultural crisis. Maybe Arturo, you want to start?
Okay. Thank you, Ronan. Good morning, everybody. Great to be here with you. Great privilege. Yeah, it was a very difficult year. We just reopened yesterday our institution with a big exhibition, a historical exhibition on American art, and it was a very special day because we have been closed for many months. I mean, we had an exhibition last year, but we were able to be open very, very, very little. So this year we learned, to act in another way. Of course, the digital experience was very important for everybody, and we work a lot on this topic to enhance our capacity to reach our public through digital. But especially we push even further on public art, which is what we were doing already, but now we are more keen to that. And the installation of JR that you mentioned was a brilliant example of our intention to go toward our public and to put art in the street, because public at the time cannot come inside the museum.
Thank you. Emma, any learning or deceptions or marvels from these crises?
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you.
And of course, we learn a lot, but in a way, we already have planted some seeds regarding a more sustainable institution, like a kind of huge living body to emphasize the connections with a lot of contemporary artists. You quote and mention Thomas Saraceno, for instance. He had a great show at the Palais Tokyo, but suddenly it was like a kind of urge and acceleration to try to find really something more organic between the program of our exhibition. We had, for instance, just before the first lockdown, a show called Our World is Burning, in which the catastrophe was no longer an horizon for philosophical or aesthetic speculation, but really something urgent. So this was really before the pandemic. And now our work is to link the program of exhibition with all the aspects of the life of the Palais Tokyo in terms of how shall we welcome public, how shall we find sponsors to support our program. And so this is this kind of organicity we are working on. Of course, it has been very difficult as we are a kind of ecosystem with restaurants, with a bookshop, and now we have to restart. It's like a new spring that we have to reinvent together.
But now it's open, and we hope it stays open for long. And you, Francesca, did you learn anything from this crisis, or were you marveled by something, or were you deceived by it?
Well, actually, I took the time this morning to reread Arundhati Roy's article from April last year. I don't know if everybody's read it, but it was an article this amazing Indian writer wrote that gave me such inspiration last year on how to adapt to this pandemic that was just emerging at the time. This was April last year. And this was at a time when there were only 1 million sick and 50,000 dead. And now we're at 3.5 million past dead people. So it gives you a perspective how powerful this article was before even the worst had happened. And she goes into describing how the pandemic is bringing the world to a halt, and that there is this rupture of what we have understood to live with. And historically, the pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and to reimagine a new world. And this is one thing that is no different now. And it's a portal, the gateway that gives one and the world into the next. So we need to actually look into that. And I think art is an incredibly powerful medium, which gives us the opportunity to revisit exactly all of those very valuable principles. So I was so inspired by this article that invites us to walk through this portal and to conquer our fears and to overcome all of the hang-ups that we have and all the baggage that we've been carrying around with us. And in the art world, carry a lot of baggage around. We ship a lot of boxes around. We do things that were very environmentally unconscious and not sustainable. So this is the moment where museums and institutions really can actually make a difference.
This is the moment. Thank you so much. Up to my first question, following on Bruno David's intervention, he's the head of the Museum of Histoire Naturelle de Paris. You three are Palazzo, Palais, and Foundation. Does a place of art, of culture, defines itself by its title or by its purpose? Do you think you have a social purpose?
Who starts?
Emma, if you want to start, I don't know.
Yeah, in a way, we are in between a palais and a ruin because our building is very old one, very fragile one, and now we have reopened with an exhibition devoted to the German artist Annie Morf, and she emphasized also this unstable statue of what is a museum or contemporary art center today. I am not a museum, but I am also very interested by the redefinition of what should be a museum. This is a kind of workshop through the International Council of Museums. And now we know that we do not have only to take care to the artworks, but to life, to human beings, to all kind of way. We need to be more inclusive in our way of working. So museums and contemporary art center are, of course, kind of echo chambers of our contemporary world and all the issues we have to face today. But I think it's very interesting to feel ourselves as kind of living part, place for debates and for reflection about the crisis. During the pandemic, it has been super hard to stay close for months and months and to be unable, except through digital platform, to talk to our visitors. So I really feel that all this political involvement could be linked also with the question of how shall we continue to be placed to dream, to be aware, to contemplate beauty and arts, and to be also connected to the other human beings and to our community. So, for instance, for the Palais Tokyo, during this pandemic, we have developed a very generous program, and we plan to open in 2022 an inclusive and educative and care center through art. A lot of contemporary artists are very involved on all kinds of public program and where we can build bridge between what is an exhibition and what is our purpose, to be more inclusive in terms of the way we can welcome our visitors. So all the question of art therapy, for instance, are very crucial in the forthcoming program of the Palais de Tokyo, and we try to be more aware of our social and environmental issue. You know how much all the French philosophers and all his books and talk, Bruno Latour, have been influential for us as institution, but also through the mind of artists. But we also have philosophers like Emmanuel Ecocha, very inspiring for us. How do we continue to work as a museum? So we are not more like a palais, but more like an echo chamber of what is happening today.
Excellent. Echo chamber. You also mentioned this polemic at the ICOM level of the definition of a museum. And Emanuele Coccia. Arturo, do you have what's your take on this? Do you have a mission as an institution?
Yeah, of course we do have a mission, and this mission is more and more important today. I think Palazzo Strozzi in Florence is a kind of laboratory. We are been working to bring in Florence modernity. You know, Florence is a very specific town with a certain context related to the past. So we work to bring the future and the present in this town and to make this town relevant today in the debate, of course, cultural debate. That's the reason why we address all the most relevant issues of the present through the lens of contemporary art. And this was unique in this city, for sure. And I think the reason of the success of our exhibitions are always linked to the theme that the artist discussed. For instance, Thomas Saraceno, that was mentioned by my colleague from Palais Tokyo. The same Cartanel, or now JR with this theme about accessibility. Before Ai Weiwei about the theme of migration. You know, we speak really about the present, and this is not banal here. Our mission is that, and we really realized more and more how art and culture are important in our public's life, and we felt this wound during this pandemic. So that's the reason why we work hard to, try to heal.
You mentioned Palazzo Strozzi is a laboratory. Emma, you said it was an echo chamber, and for you, Francesca, as a family-owned, I don't know if I should say that, but as a family-owned collection and foundation, what is your take on this? And maybe, because I see that time is running, we only have 9 minutes left, but maybe jumping to the second part of our interview, which is more on the concrete things you've put in place, maybe talking about TBA W1 Academy.
Of course. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Well, of course, my father was the pioneer of cultural diplomacy back in the 80s when, during the Cold War, he made a huge exchange with the Soviet museums and his aim was to reach world peace at a time where the Cold War was, had the biggest nuclear powers pointing huge amounts of nuclear arsenal at each other. We lived in a very different time. And for those of us who lived in the 80s and understood the dangers of the Cold War, I think we're in another Cold War era. And I think the idea of world peace is so very, very important. Not only that we find peace with ourselves, which I think a lot of people are understanding they need to do, but also peace with nature. And that is one of the reasons why, as a private organization, as you said, with a wonderful heritage, it's been an incredible opportunity to experiment and to take risks and to act differently. Luckily, we don't have a museum institution with rules that we need to break. We can just recreate and reinvent ourselves. And I think the challenges today are very obvious. I don't need to list them. But I think that artists have been at the forefront of revolutions for centuries, and that we should really not underestimate the power that they have to help us reimagine and fight for a different future. And there are incredibly many artists stepping up to this task. And that means there is an increasing audience that are interested in these artists deliberating on these topics. And that doesn't mean they become part of propaganda, nor do they become part of mainstream media. They have their own amazing language as antennas of our time and help us empathize, but also deeply understand and hopefully change our ways. So, yes, we have a number of programs. We're just celebrating our 20th year. But 10 years ago, we founded the Exploratory Soul of TBA 21, which was focused entirely on oceans. And it's based in Venice, and it's called the Ocean Academy, TBA 21 Academy, sorry. Soon to be called TBA 21 Oceans. So we're big focusing on the importance of oceans through our program there. At the nexus of science, indigenous voices, and opinion leaders and policymakers. So it's really focusing on these topics through the lens of art. And in the beginning, many people asked us, why are you focusing on just this one thing? We realized, the vastness of the ocean and its topics are so huge.
yeah, it might seem surprising for some people. Emma, what concretely did you put in place to face those challenges? Social, we were mentioning inclusion before, environmental. At first, because it's interesting to be ambitious, but to start small. What are you mentioned the care center, but maybe there's other policies that you are putting in place or are planning to put in place. Can you talk to us about it?
Absolutely. To be short, because time is running, we will also to start a very ambitious season of several exhibitions named Reclaim the Earth as a manifesto with about 30 different artists worldwide, shaping new connection with nature, with the living world and the environment. And connected to this very ambitious program, we are also launching a CSR department, and so to prepare ourselves for the challenges of our time in terms of adaptation, resilience, and the fight against climate change. So it's not only to do a huge season of exhibition about this question, but how can we change our model? We have to fundraise 63% of our budget to produce our exhibition. And how can we try to reach carbon neutrality and making a radical change in the way we show and produce art? And how can we collaborate with other entities? And in that context, we are, for instance, launching a program of 2 business circles. One in the field of art and ecology. Companies have twofold impact regarding the role of creation in environmental awareness, and they will sponsor the season Reclaim the Earth, and they will also provide their collaboration to help the Palais to be more sustainable. And the second circle will be about this question of the care center I talked before, and to develop a program of art therapy. And so this is like a way to walk in a new direction with this 2 direction regarding sustainability and inclusivity.
Fascinating. I hope that other directors or president of museums will be inspired by those initiatives that you're mentioning. You, Arturo, at your level, at the Palazzo, what are you putting in place?
Yeah, sustainability is very important. Now is a key word. We are working on new policies for organizing exhibition in a more sustainable way, both including travels, trips, packing, also production of new work on site, and also working with local contractors, etc., etc. So we are working hard on this, but of course we are also very keen in being connected with our most fragile public. We are been working hard on developing new accessibility programs for people affected by Alzheimer, Parkinson, and other diseases. It's very important to work with these fragile categories now, because they suffer more the distance from culture and the distance from our programs. And then we are also working on economical sustainability, because with the program of our next program of exhibition, his aim is to create a better tourism in Florence, because now before we had the barbarian invasion of mass tourism. Now we are in a desert, so we have to work in between. And thanks to we proved also very well during this year that our program can bring in town a quality tourism, more sustainable, better for our economy, better for our environment.
Thank you. Francesca, do you want to conclude with what you're putting in place at your level?
Thank you. Yes, of course. Happy to do so. We created last year the onset, inspired by Arundhati Roy, as I mentioned her in the beginning, a new program called Stage, which it's short for streaming age, and it was online. It has been online. We've had 2 seasons because one of the main problems with so many artists were being cancelled and postponed. And I think from my point of view, not being such a heavy institution, I really wanted to make sure that artists continued working, because without them, we would have such a massive cultural loss over an extended period of time. And so an emergency fund was made, and we continued our commissioning process. We've already commissioned over 150 works in our lifetime. But these commissions now were exclusively for online, so you can see them on the stage, and they're focusing mainly on social and environmental injustices. And I think at the core of all of this, we've been able to use the internet and use being online as an opportunity to unfold some of these stories, because many times when artworks are exhibited in museums, there's not the background story. You don't get access to all the research that the artists have done, because the practice of artistic research is so profound and they're so well informed today. And I think this is something that is really encouraging to see, that we've had now 10 artists in the last season and 12 in this season that has just started again. Taking from all the Netflix ideas of seasons and episodes. And,
well, we will look it up. We will look
at
the next season.
New.
We will follow up with the next
so
season and the next season of your 3 institutions. Thank you for your innovative and visionary ideas. I hope that people online watching us now and later will be inspired. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome back, and now I would like to introduce. I see that some people are arriving. Dan, you are here. Is Marine here? Yes. Okay. Good.
Yes,
I would like to introduce Marine. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Hello, Marine. So, Marine van Schoonbeek, you're the co-founder of Thanks for Nothing. So, it's a non-profit that bridges the gap between art and social change and social needs. And you will also tell a little bit maybe about the project that you will now manage with Thanks for Nothing and many other players, like French players like Make Sense, Emmaüs, Refugee Food Festival. It's an iconic landmark in Paris called La Collective, and it's very interesting that you two are going to discuss about public art, and I will let you, Marine, introduce Dan and speak together. You have 20 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much, Renaud, and thank you for inviting us. We are very happy, and I'm saying we because I represent, like you said, a collective of women called Thanks for Nothing, and we've created our structure in 2017. And so I'm here, and I'm speaking upon all my colleagues as well working on this project. And so today I'm very happy to be in dialogue with Dan Asher, who is a Geneva-based international artivist. And so this is the first part that hello, Dan. Now I can see you. And I'm very happy. So we've had a wonderful conversation together about your work and about how it is important to have a collective and collaborative and participative work within art public space. And so maybe the first thing I want to ask you is about this term, and then we're going to talk about, of course, your iconic projects, which are Ciné Transat Festival that you did in Geneva, but also We Are Watching, which is the eye of the people at some point, a wonderful flag that you've been putting and installing in many cities to confront also the power. And finally, Borealis, which is a way to reproduce the northern lights on demand, which is a very innovative and technological aspect that also make you an entrepreneur at some point. So this is a general presentation, but of course we're going to go deep into it. And so the first question, Dan, I want to ask you is, would you be able to define this term, not artist, but artivist?
Definitely. Thank you very much. So, artivist, the idea is that, the art world's been, really active in social change for centuries, basically since it started. And I think artists have had a lot of, in the art world, people have had troubles, saying, okay, my work is about impact. And actually, my stance is that my work is completely 100% about impact. So there's this word artist, and then there's the word activist. And activism is a way to actually merge the two of them together.
Yes, of course. And I understand that perfectly well, because you told me that you wouldn't be that comfortable with the term of artist, and that also implicates an active and participative action the way you did. So, and first thing also that you mentioned to me was that you were a fellow Ashoka, which is a wonderful international organization. And would you be able to explain to me how specific this program allow you to become even more an artivist? Because we know that not a lot of artists are part of this program. Usually it's or international organization, NGOs, and so on. So can you explain to us how this program shaped your work throughout many years, and how it became part of this identity of being an artivist?
With pleasure. So Ashoka is the international network of social change makers and social entrepreneurs. It's a very large organization, and as far as the social change makers, we are about 4,000 people worldwide. So I'm a social change maker. I've been, creating projects for social change for many years now. And joining Ashoka, actually, they come and try to find you, and the process is really long and complicated. But once you're part of the network, it really helps you to scaling up, basically, your impact. And what this specific network really helped me was to open my the global aspect of my work. So I had done a lot of work, around Geneva, the region, the country, and maybe France and around as well. But then maybe really think of how I could get my artwork to be replicated, how some of it can be open, like open source, so other people can replicate it and do it by themselves. How I can, have my artwork to travel around the world and just being in different places at the same time, basically reach as many people as I can. So my worldview totally shifted from a view of being more regional to a totally global view. So that was a really big thing, and I'm really happy about this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand, because this network is absolutely fantastic, and Ashoka fellows are usually really change makers in their domain and their capacity. So would you be able to talk to us about the Ciné Transat Festival? Because I know that, like you just said, you've been able to reach such an important community. It was like more or less 3,000 young people involved into this project, which is a huge project that you started in Geneva. And I believe that this was the first day where you shaped this contagious art project that now you are developing around the globe. But you started in Geneva, and I know that this was important to you as well.
Sure. Just to get back to the question, because I've noticed that I didn't fully answer. It is true that the Ashoka network is really about social change. And when I first got in, it was really hard to put me into one of these boxes, because I didn't have like one project on, the kids or climate and stuff. It was more like artworks on different issues. And it took a lot of time for them to be able to, allow me in the network and see how I could, like what I could bring into it. And I think me being there and other artists more and more around the world is actually also changing the organization from within. So that is really interesting. And they're really profiling us, putting us forward. So I think, it goes totally both ways. Regarding Ciné Transat, I'm not sure if you're talking about Ciné Transat or about Agir 21, which is like my first project with 3,000 kids that I was able to get involved in the environmental issues. Totally participative. Ciné Transat is that's what my team here in Geneva organizes, and it's free open air cinema that I recreate by the lake. And but what people don't know is that basically we get people to come and say, hey, we're going to watch a cool movie and it's totally free and it's by the lake and stuff. But what the intention behind it is, what we're looking at is the experience we can get people on the grass field to have. So it's totally participating. We get up to 3,000-5,000 people per day singing together, dancing together before the movie, reacting to the movie. There's heaps of things that makes it go from a individual experience that you would have at the cinema to a collective experience. A lot of gratitude, and it's really shaped the cultural life here in Geneva around the summer. It's been going on for 12 years now, and we'll see what happens for this summer.
Yes, well, it's very impressive, and I think the key word in what you mentioned is the experience, because I know that the starting point of all the project is how you get people together via your creation and via the arts. So really, I think, like you mentioned it this way, I think experiencing an artwork all together, this is the goal of your work, right?
Exactly. So what's behind it is always the same thing. Basically, it's creating a situations where strangers come and connect. That can be 2 people, 100, 1,000, 100,000, like a whole city. But it's always, the same meeting point. Creating a situation where people that don't know each other actually get to experience the same emotion, to share that emotion, and actually to experience that feeling of a shared humanity. I believe that now more than ever, we need to understand that, we are here together and we need to work together towards our shared future, whatever that will be. So these situations go, in that direction. And then, some installations have, like more precise messages, for example, for the climate, for social issues, different things like this. But the invitation is always for people to come and, or actually different artworks that go towards the population, but to create these situations where 2 strangers will come and connect.
Yes, and actually one project, a very important project that you did, that embodies this idea of the collective participating into the same cause and watching the power, maybe, is We Are Watching, which is the flag, the eyes of the world. It's this iconic flag that you first installed in Madrid for COP25, if I'm correct. And now this project has grew a lot, developed a lot. And what you told me that I found very interesting is that you started from a viral experience, which is how everyone is connected via social media, the internet, and so on, and how people are fed by the news of the globe, and but how at some point we kind of get out of this viral connection that we have to create a real connection via an artwork. So would you be able to explain to us this incredible flag that brought so many people and that became first viral, from a viral experience, then to a physical experience of the artwork in the art space, and then become also a viral experience?
Definitely. So for the COP25, I decided to, offer a way for people all around the world to be at the table there. Basically to have a giant flag. It's really big, it's like 30 meters by 20 meters. It flies at a height of 60 meters high. And it represents a giant eye. And this eye is made up of tens of thousands of faces that people sent me from 190 countries around the world. The project is called We Are Watching, and this eye is watching the world leaders. It's active watching the world leaders as they come in and get out of the COP25 building to decide the future of our planet, basically. So this whole started in 2019, and it was a massive campaign to try to get, all the countries in the world to be represented on the flag. So outreach to different networks, Fridays for Future, Greenpeace, Amnesty, Avaz, and all these fully shared it, and it was a real mission we had only a month to get all these faces around on the flag. So it was a totally, a viral campaign using social media, and the idea of, people taking photos of themselves or selfies and stuff. So it's working on all these trends that are totally happening at the moment. Translating it into an actual concrete hard work, because this flag exists, and this flag, traveled to Madrid, and now it's here in Geneva, and it's going to be traveling. It's going to be at Greenwich in London, starting a tour of minimum 7 cities to Edinburgh and then to Glasgow for COP26. So this flag actually exists, and this flag has the eyes of the world on it, and it flies so high, it flies actually above the city. And then, as you said, there's this book we say in French, as we started with a viral campaign that got into like a concrete art piece, and then these people start, taking pictures and sharing the pictures with the hashtag We Are Watching. People start drawing the eye on their hands. That's what they did at COP25, and it's going to do it again at COP26. And all these photos start, spreading really far and wide. And then we have, the Guardian making articles, and all these articles worldwide. So we go from social media, virtual, to a concrete art piece, and then back into and feeding again the social media world. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
Yes, absolutely. No, and I thought what was really interesting about this project is how you position the artwork as a symbol above the power. This is absolutely fascinating to me. And finally, so the work I wanted to talk about is Borealis, which is a reproduction in situ in the public space of the Northern Lights. So I know that the next edition will be in France, in Rennes, if I'm not mistaken. And so I would like you to explain to us about this project, how it also shaped you as an artivist, but also as an entrepreneur, because I know it is a very innovative project that led you to many researches of innovation, because technical part of this project is very sophisticated. So would you be able to explain to us how you shaped this project and how now it's going to be global and viral, the way you also told us about the tour of We Are Watching?
For sure. So Borealis started, it was a demand by an international institute here in Switzerland, Technical Institute, and they were opening a new art lab, really famous. And they had this new space, and they said, okay, we have opening night, 600 people from the government, and we want, when people come out of the building onto that new space, to say, wow. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. How big is that space? And they said, well, it's 200 meters by 100 meters. And I was like, wow, okay. I've done large, art pieces before, but like anything, 16 meters by 16 meters would have done nothing in such a big space. So I had this idea of creating the Northern Lights for a while, basically looking at what are the experiences that people can have where you feel small, where there's awe, when you feel like there's something bigger than you. And people that have had chance to experience the Northern Lights, this is something that really touches them and they carry for the rest of their lives. So then the next thought was like, am I what's the world percentage of people around the world that will have the chance to experience the Northern Lights, and that's close to zero. It's like hardly anyone. And so the next question was, am I able to recreate something that looks like the Northern Lights? So I got in touch with a company in Germany, and we did a lot of research and development to create this piece that is now traveling around the world. There's two intentions behind it. First is, again, creating, transforming the city, transforming the imaginary and the imagination about a space, and getting all these people to come together and erase the differences that are between each other. So whatever age, origin, all this, is erased or is put aside, and we're just here sharing our shared humanity. And then there's also the question about the climate. Okay, people come again because they think they're going to experience something beautiful, and it is beautiful. But the question are, why is there the Northern Lights here? They shouldn't be here. Whatever our sense of wanting to control the climate all the time, and where is it going to lead us in this climate crisis? Are we going towards geoengineering? So there's always this tension. It's something beautiful, and we come in to enjoy it together with our families and with a huge crowd of people. And there's this sense of awe and beauty, but at the same time, we plant these seeds with these questions about our future and our shared humanity, both as something beautiful to experience, but as our future together.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and actually this is, I think, where we meet, because Thanks for Nothing mission also is to question how we can get together and to respond to social and commitment. So basically this is how we also created Thanks for Nothing in 2017, to respond to the refugee crisis, to social crisis, to environmental crisis, and working also with artists that position themselves as activists as well. This is definitely our meeting point, for sure.
Good.
Awesome. I think Art's gonna, yeah?
I'm so happy that you two met, because it's so coherent. And I'm sorry, we are running out of time. Thank you so much for everything that you said of the relationship with the public, the scale of the project, the sense of belonging. It was fascinating and enlightening, so thank you so much. And we'll go check HappyCityLab, go check Thanks for Nothing, and let's continue onto our program.
Thank you very much.